Hello, everybody. My name is Ricardo Fernandes. I'm a professor in the research faculty of sports of the University of Porto in Portugal. I'm a member of the Center of Research, Education, Innovation and Intervention in Sport, and I'm also part of Porto Biomechanics Laboratory. Today, I'm going to speak about the importance of the evaluation of the backstroke start, particularly using an instrumented starting block. You know that swimming time depends not only on the swimming part, on the swimming section, but also on the starting and turning phases. In fact, in short events, the starting phase can have time until 30% of the total time of the swimming event. So it's really important. And starting, it's not as simple as we think, because we can start depending on acoustic and visual stimulus. And when we focus only in dorsal events, we can have a number of different techniques and some variability in between techniques that we should take into account. Moreover, we know that during several decades, it was mandatory that swimmers' feet to be placed under the surface of the water. Nowadays, since some years ago, feet can be placed above the water surface, but without standing on the gutter. And more recently, a backstroke start ledge can be used for supporting the swimmer's feet. In this video, we can have a look on these new facilities that FINA introduced some years ago.
Provide a fair start to all swimmers, Omega designed the backstroke foot ledge. The FINA-approved backstroke ledge is 80 centimeters long, 8 centimeters tall, and 2 centimeters in width at the base, pitched at a 10-degree angle, and the ledge is coated with an anti-slip surface.
The design of the foot ledge is very simple and very straightforward.
First impression was great. It was a fun little toy to kind of, play with.
It allows you to adjust very easily. Similarly to the wedge on the block, it just takes a second or two and you could adjust it to your desired height.
From the ledge's baseline position at water level, it is adjustable to 4 additional positions in 2 centimeter increments above the surface of the water and also below the surface of the water.
David Plummer might have slipped off the blocks. If he didn't slip, he got a terrible start. He comes up a little high, which happens to be, yep, you see how his foot slipped back there?
Almost looked like both feet slipped.
And it's a testament to FINA. I think that they've made a great step.
So, taking this into account, our group aimed to develop, some years ago, a new dynamometric central that tries to mimic the starting blocks that are official, but we aim also to develop a dispositive that allow the performance of almost all or even all the swimming starts that we know that swimmers use, with having in mind that this new starting block needs to discriminate each limb action, so separating the forces of the upper and the lower limbs and separating the left part of the body from the right part of the body. And in this slide, you can see exactly that. This is the instrumented starting block that can be used for dorsal and for ventral starts, and can discriminate a number of techniques that swimmers can use in individual and relay starts. The experimental data setup is rather complex, but it needs to be like that. So we can have an overall picture of the swimmer when he's starting. In this video, you can observe our swimming pool. All the preparatory works that needs to be done, placing the above water and underwater cameras, calibrating the space with the different cameras, and then, as you see, placing the dynamometric central instrumenting starting block, so we can have an overall idea of individual and relay starts. We can also add some electromyography if we want, and this is one example of the final output that we can have. We can move the back platform for positioning the feet on the ventral starts also. We will have underwater images until the 15 meters mark, and this is one example of the kinetic data that we can obtain from the right, left foot, right and left hands. This is one of the paths that we can observe during the gliding of the backstroke start, with the path of different body parts, so the coach at the session can select the body part. With this in mind, we can jump for data analysis, and it is very important in this phase to take care of each one of the phases of the start. So the hands-off is the first phase that we should take a look, then the takeoff, then the flight, and then the entry phase. And of course, it's very important also to observe the underwater gliding, the underwater phase. This can be done using force plates and 3D digital video, but we can also, during practice, to be more practical, use checklists and use a simple camera to make some qualitative analysis. Here, I'm going to present you some data of our previous studies. And here you can see a comparison between lowest and highest horizontal hand grip and a vertical hand grip when starting with immersed, partial immersed, and totally immersed feet. And we are comparing a very important variable that is the lower limb horizontal impulse. You can find this in our published material. In this slide, we can see not kinematic, but not kinetic, but kinematical data. One of the most used variables by coaches, the 50-meter start time. So from the acoustic signal until the 50-meter mark, where we compare also the three types of starts, and we can see for each swimmer which is the fastest until this 50-meter mark. We can see also some related performance indicators, seeing and comparing between variants and between swimmers. What is the path of some body points? You can select the waist, you can select the ankle, you can select the body center of mass if you want. And we can also jump to different approaches, like the time at the maximal hip and knee angular velocity, and the time at maximal hip and ankle angular velocity. And if you take a look to this figure, and then you can see our paper, we can observe that the hip is the first joint to be extended, and then more or less at the same time, there is a simultaneous knee and ankle extension. This in the backstroke start, of course. So, some take-home messages to give you. Swimmers should give some priority to a completely out of the water body setup position. And why? Because we know that the water hydrodynamic drag is very high. So we need to minimize the water resistance during flight and entry. Please do not allow that your swimmers to drag the lower limbs during the flight phase. They should not drag in the water surface this body part. Then we should generate proper partition between horizontal and vertical impulse. We cannot say that horizontal impulse is the most important one and not the vertical impulse, and vice versa. We think that each swimmer needs to have a good combination, an individual combination between horizontal and vertical impulse. Then we should take care that the body velocity should not decrease a lot. So we need to take care to have a less as possible decrease of body velocity during gliding. And the gliding, as you know, depends on the previous phases. Very important also, mainly for age group swimmers where this phenomenon occurs a lot, we should have a firm start from the wall without slippage, because if they drop in the same place, they will lose a lot of time and they will be very nervous and anxious during the event. So swimmers should train on more advanced starting blocks. They should not use a different technique that they are using during their training practice. And very important, they should not try to mimic their idols without proper training. I hope that you find this video useful, and even if you don't have such facilities and technology, please build your checklists, use some simple camera to film and to give feedback to your swimmers.